Hello, book enthusiasts, and welcome to Listen with Best Audiobooks. All our audiobooks are originally written, produced, and narrated by us. We don't reuse or repurpose third-party content. Every script, voice, and edit is made exclusively for this channel. Now, sit back, relax, and let's begin today's audiobook.
Wealth isn't just about numbers. It isn't about luck. It's not even about hard work alone. The real difference between people who stay stuck and those who rise, it's how they think. Millionaires don't think like the average. They don't process time, money, or failure the way most people do. Their minds operate on a different frequency, a frequency that builds wealth, creates value, and attracts opportunities. Not by accident, but by design. In this audiobook, you'll learn how to rewire your thinking for abundance, for expansion, for wealth that doesn't just appear, but stays. This is the mindset no one teaches in school. This is the unspoken code of the financially free, and now it's in your hands. So if you're ready to reshape the way you see the world, your work, and your future, subscribe to this journey. Let each chapter sharpen your mind, expand your perspective, and activate the millionaire within you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Wealth starts in the mind. Most people want to be rich, but very few know how to think like someone who already is. They dream of wealth, but walk with a poor mindset. They chase money while carrying mental habits that silently push it away. They work hard but think small, and that's why they stay stuck, year after year, effort after effort, because they never address the root. They focus on doing more, instead of becoming more. Wealth begins in one place, the mind. Not in your bank, not in your environment, not in some magical opportunity. The mind is the original factory of fortune, and until that space is changed, nothing you touch will multiply. It might grow temporarily, but it won't last. Because without the thinking to sustain wealth, even money becomes a burden. Look around. How many people win the lottery only to end up broke again? How many athletes make millions and retire with nothing? It's not about how much you make. It's about how you think. Because if your mind isn't ready for the wealth will destroy you. The thinking of a millionaire isn't loud. It's structured. It's long-term. It's deeply rooted in responsibility. It doesn't think about getting paid next Friday. It's thinking about legacy, about value creation, about multiplying, not just earning. It doesn't ask, what can I get? It asks, what can I build? Most people are addicted to consuming. They buy to feel worthy. They show off to feel seen. They overwork to prove something. But none of that leads to wealth. Real wealth comes from understanding one thing very clearly. You are not paid by the hour. You are paid by the value you bring. And value begins in your thinking. When you think small, you act small. You speak in limitations. You believe in survival. You hope things work out instead of making things happen. But when your mindset shifts into wealth thinking, your whole world begins to rearrange. You start choosing differently. You spend your time with purpose. You read things that feed your mind instead of entertain your doubt. You invest in skills, in systems, in structure. Not because it's trendy, but because you've accepted the responsibility of being more than average. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It happens through friction. You will face resistance from others and from yourself. Friends may fall away. Comfort will tempt you to go back. Doubt will creep in. But if you push through, if you hold the line, if you choose this mindset over and over again, you will become the kind of person who attracts wealth, not chases it. Let me tell you the truth. You don't have a money problem. You have a pattern problem. You're thinking like someone who's preparing for scarcity instead of expansion. You're solving short-term problems, not building long-term solutions. You're looking for hacks when what you really need is a shift. The millionaire doesn't blame. They don't wait. They don't react. They observe. They study. They calculate. They create. And most importantly, They think for themselves, because they understand that the world is constantly trying to shape your mind, and if you're not intentional, you'll inherit a mindset that was never yours. A mindset of lack, a mindset of struggle, a mindset of, I'm not enough, but you are enough. You just haven't thought like it yet. Let that sink in. You've been operating at 10% of your capacity, and not because you're lazy, but because you've been surrounded by small thinking for so long, it became normal. But the moment you begin to challenge it, to question every financial belief you've inherited, to see wealth as a mindset before it's a reality, that's when everything starts to change. Start with this. Stop asking, can I afford it? Start asking, how can I create it? Stop thinking, what if I lose? Start thinking, what if I build something so strong, I never need to worry again? Because that's what a millionaire does. They don't live in fear of loss. They live in clarity of creation. They know that even if it all burns down, they'll rebuild it again. Why? Because the mindset is the real asset. Not the money, not the house, not the car, the mind. This is why wealthy people stay wealthy, and why the broke often stay broke, even when given a chance. It's not about opportunity, it's about capacity. You only hold what your mind can handle. If your thinking is full of cracks, your life will leak. But if your thinking is fortified, built brick by brick with discipline, intention, and belief, then your life becomes the reflection of that inner structure. Quiet, strong, unshakable. And here's the most powerful truth. It's not too late to build that. You don't need to wait until next year. You don't need to be in the right place or know the right people. You just need to start here, now, with your thoughts. Start by thinking like someone who deserves more. Think like someone who solves problems instead of blaming them. Think like someone who learns instead of complains. Think like someone who doesn't need validation because they've already approved their own greatness. That kind of thinking, it's magnetic. It attracts the right rooms, the right conversations, the right ideas, and soon, money becomes a byproduct of how you move, not the reason you move. You don't need to chase it anymore. You become the kind of person it can't ignore, because money follows value, and value is created in the mind. So let this be your foundation. Wealth doesn't begin with income, it begins with identity. Shift that, and everything else follows. And once your identity is rooted in power, not fear, in creation, not reaction, in service, not ego, in purpose, not popularity, then wealth becomes not just a possibility, but a pattern, a rhythm, a natural result of who you are. And when you reach that point, you won't need to scream it. You won't need to prove it. You'll simply live it, in silence, with strength. Chapter 2. The Mindset Gap Between the Poor and the Rich. The difference between the poor and the rich is not just money, it's not just background, it's not just education. The real difference lies in the way they think. The real gap is invisible. It exists in the way they see risk, time, opportunity, value, and themselves. Two people can look at the same situation and see completely different things. One sees danger, the other sees potential. One sees loss, the other sees leverage. One waits to be rescued, the other builds a bridge. That's mindset. The poor mindset is trained in limitation. It's told what's possible by people who never broke the cycle. It's rewarded for obedience, not originality. It avoids mistakes more than it seeks progress. And most of all, it's taught to work for money instead of letting money work for them. The rich mindset is trained in vision. It's raised on possibilities, not just problems. It respects failure because it sees failure as feedback. It doesn't fear starting over. It fears staying the same. The rich mindset isn't about arrogance. It's about ownership. It knows that if something must happen, then it's on me to make it happen. Let's break this down even deeper. When someone with a poor mindset hears invest, they think lose. When someone with a rich mindset hears invest, they think multiply. The poor mindset thinks in cost. The rich mindset thinks in value. The poor mindset spends more time blaming others. The rich mindset spends more time building something new. The poor mindset says, I can't afford it. The rich mindset says, how can I afford it? The poor mindset sees time as something to kill. The rich mindset sees time as something to invest. Now, none of these are about how much money someone has. These are beliefs, patterns, and they're deeply programmed from early on. If you grew up hearing, money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are greedy, or don't dream too big, then those phrases didn't just pass through your ears. They rooted in your belief system. They shaped how you move. And the danger is not just in the belief, but in how silently it controls your life. You don't chase the opportunity because deep down you don't feel worthy. You don't raise your prices because some voice in your head says, who do you think you are? You stay small, not because you're lazy, but because somewhere along the way you were taught that small is safe. Small is loyal, small is good. But the truth is, small doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve your future. It doesn't serve your family. It doesn't serve the world. Wealthy thinkers don't apologize for thinking big. They understand that abundance doesn't take from others. It expands the world for everyone. That money isn't evil. It's a magnifier. If you're generous when you're broke, you'll be more generous when you're rich. If you're selfish when you're poor, money will only expose it. The shift happens when you realize this. No one is coming to change your mindset for you. It's your job, your responsibility, your daily assignment. And it starts with awareness. Catch yourself when you say, I can't. Pause when you think, that's impossible. Challenge every internal voice that sounds like fear disguised as wisdom. Because behind every limitation is a belief waiting to be questioned. The rich don't become rich by luck. They become rich because they live in a different world, a world built by their thoughts, their habits, their non-negotiables. They read what others ignore. They show up when others sleep. They surround themselves with people who stretch them, not just support them. And here's the thing. The rich mindset isn't for the rich alone. It's for anyone who chooses it. Anyone who's willing to unlearn what they were taught. Anyone who's ready to stop waiting and start building. It takes courage to shift. To step away from the thinking that feels familiar but keeps you broke. To take responsibility for every area of your life. To stop blaming your parents, your school, your country, your boss, and say, if it's going to change, it's going to be me. That's the turning point. That's the moment the mindset gap begins to close. Because once you believe that you can build wealth, not win it, not find it, not stumble into it, but build it with your mind, your hands, your habits, then you've already won. You're no longer in the old game. You're building your own. And the people around you? They may not understand. They may mock the change. They may try to pull you back. But that's part of it. Every great builder walks alone for a season. Every strong thinker must first outgrow their environment before they outgrow their income. So walk boldly. Think differently. Challenge the programming. Because wealth is not just a number. It's a way of life. And the gap between where you are and where you want to be, it's not time. It's not luck. It's not money. It's mindset. Chapter 3. Breaking free from scarcity conditioning. There's a quiet programming that starts early in life. It doesn't come through harsh words or loud commands. It comes through subtle moments. A parent sighing at the grocery bill. A teacher saying, not everyone can be rich. A neighbor saying, life is hard, you just survive. It gets planted early, and if you're not careful, it grows roots in your identity. This is scarcity conditioning. It's the deep-rooted belief that there's not enough to go around, not enough money, not enough time, not enough opportunity. And because of that, we must shrink, hoard, avoid risk, and play safe. This kind of thinking isn't just about money, it affects everything. You stop asking for what you're worth because you think it's too much. You settle for less because you believe that's all you can get. You judge others who rise, not because they're wrong, but because their freedom reminds you of your own limits. Scarcity makes people bitter, jealous, tired. It makes people see the world through the lens of lack. So even when opportunity is in front of them, they can't recognize it. They say, it's too risky. They say, that's not for people like us. They sabotage themselves, not because they're bad, but because their inner programming tells them, this is all you deserve. That's the invisible prison, and most people live their whole life inside it. But here's the truth most never hear. Scarcity is not a law. It's a lens, and lenses can be removed. You see, the world is full of abundance. There are people right now building businesses from their bedrooms, earning from their ideas, selling skills they didn't even know they had 5 years ago. Not because they're lucky, but because they broke the scarcity program. They stopped seeing the world as a place of limits and started seeing it as a system of value exchange. They realized that money flows where value grows, that wealth isn't about finding, it's about becoming. Scarcity says, I need to hold on tight to what I have. Abundance says, if I grow, I can always create more. Scarcity says, don't spend, it might run out. Abundance says, invest because growth multiplies. Scarcity thinks in terms of loss. Abundance thinks in terms of leverage. Now, breaking out of scarcity isn't about just thinking positively. It's about real inner work. It's about noticing every time that old voice tries to speak. It's in the moment you hesitate to apply for the opportunity. It's in the thought that says, they probably won't pick me. It's in the reaction when someone else succeeds and you feel small inside. That's the voice you have to catch and challenge. You have to say, no, that's not me anymore. That's the old programming. I choose differently now. Because if you don't speak back to that voice, it runs your life in silence. Reprogramming takes repetition. It's not glamorous, it's not overnight. But it's freedom. Start small. Look at your money beliefs. Where did they come from? Who told you what was possible? Whose voice are you still carrying in your head? Whose limits have become yours? Then do something powerful. Forgive them, not for their sake, but for yours, because they were passing down what they knew. But you're choosing something new. You're not a victim of scarcity, you're the breaker of the cycle. Millionaire thinking doesn't start with financial strategy. It starts with mental clarity, with cleaning out the old ideas, with giving yourself permission to want more without guilt, with building a new story that says, I am capable of creating more than enough. I can serve others and still be wealthy. I am not stealing from the world by winning. I am expanding it. This shift isn't loud. It happens in silence, in your journal, in your morning routine, in the decisions you make when no one is watching. It's in choosing to invest instead of scrolling. It's in learning instead of blaming. It's in showing up differently, not because life got easy, but because you got clear. And once you make that shift, your actions start to follow. You speak differently. You walk differently. You ask for more. You negotiate higher. You take your time seriously. You stop underpricing your time and over-delivering out of fear. Scarcity told you to settle. Abundance tells you to step up. Scarcity says survive. Abundance says build. That's the new code. And every day you repeat it, you weaken the old one. You create a new identity. Not just someone who earns money, but someone who attracts, multiplies, and manages it wisely, without guilt, without shame, without fear. This is what thinking like a millionaire actually looks like. Not flashy, not arrogant, not fake, but rooted, clear, powerful. Because when your mind is free from scarcity, your decisions elevate, your energy becomes magnetic, your future becomes unlimited, not because everything is easy, but because you're not fighting yourself anymore. You're not your past. You're not your parents' struggle. You're not your neighborhood. You're not your bank account. You are what you choose to believe today. So believe in expansion. Believe in overflow. Believe in responsibility, discipline, and vision. And walk in that. Even if you're the first in your bloodline to do it, especially if you are. Because you're not just getting rich. You're resetting the standard. Chapter 4, Millionaire Habits. Building the inner infrastructure of wealth. Before a man becomes wealthy on paper, he becomes wealthy in his patterns. What you do every day, consistently, intentionally, even when no one is watching, that becomes your infrastructure, and that infrastructure determines what kind of success your life can carry. See, everyone wants to build a mansion, but not everyone lays the foundation. Everyone wants overflow, but not everyone trains for capacity. The difference? Habits. Wealth isn't built in the big decisions, it's built in the small ones, repeated quietly, daily, with discipline. Most people are waiting for a breakthrough, but those who rise, those who sustain wealth, they're building a system, a routine, a structure strong enough to hold what they're asking for. Think of it like this: money amplifies who you already are. If you're scattered now, wealth will make you more scattered. If you're reactive, it'll magnify your instability. But if you're strategic, focused, and consistent, then money simply multiplies that. That's why millionaire habits matter. Not for show, not for flex, but for function. Let's talk mornings. You might think it's a cliché, but wealthy people protect their mornings like sacred ground. Why? Because how they start the day controls how they lead the day. They don't wake up reacting. They don't begin scrolling, responding, or rushing. They wake up with intention. They invest in silence, in clarity, in stillness. Because their mind is the asset, and the asset needs to be nourished. This doesn't mean a perfect routine. It means a pattern that says, I value my time. I don't give the world access to my energy before I center myself. They journal. They read. They study money, psychology, markets, leadership. Not because they're nerds, but because they understand every next level requires a new level of thinking. Millionaires don't wait for the world to train them. They train themselves. Another habit: discipline with time. Time is the real currency. The poor trade time for money. The wealthy use time to create systems, to learn leverage, to multiply impact. They don't spend 3 hours explaining themselves to people who won't grow. They don't waste days watching drama unfold online. They're unavailable to nonsense. Not because they're rude, but because they're busy building something no one else can see yet. Millionaire thinkers move with clarity. They know what matters, and they know what doesn't. They cut the excess, not just from spending, but from lifestyle. They don't fill every space. They give themselves room to breathe, create, think, and most importantly, they build systems, habits that remove decision fatigue, routines that protect their bandwidth. They don't rely on motivation, they rely on structure. You'll find them scheduling deep work, time-blocking priorities, automating what can be automated, not because they're trying to be robots, but because they understand energy is precious. Every decision costs something. So they remove the unnecessary and protect the important. Another critical habit: they write things down. They don't keep everything in their heads. Their goals, numbers, insights, mistakes. It's all documented. Why? Because clarity compounds. And what gets tracked grows. Poor minds rely on memory. Rich minds rely on process. They review. They reflect, they refine. If something didn't work, they don't hide it, they study it. If a plan failed, they don't complain, they pivot. If a result came in small, they ask, what part of the process do I need to strengthen? That kind of self-reflection is not accidental, it's deliberate, and it's one of the reasons they keep growing while others stay confused. Now let's talk about discipline with emotion. The rich don't let feelings control them. That doesn't mean they're cold. It means they've trained their emotions to serve their mission, not sabotage it. They don't make decisions based on mood swings. They pause, they wait, they measure. Because when your emotions lead your life, money will always be inconsistent. But when your habits lead your life, money becomes predictable. They know that consistency beats intensity, that daily work, even when it feels dull, creates results that hype can't compete with. They'd rather make 1% progress daily than 100% inspiration once a month, because the compound effect is real. And millionaires respect the math of mastery. They also train delayed gratification. That's a rare habit. Most people want it now. The car, the clothes, the image. But the wealthy, they can wait. They know that patience isn't weakness, it's strategy. They don't need to look rich. They're busy becoming rich. They don't buy liabilities to impress people who aren't watching. They reinvest, they scale, they grow in silence. Because they understand what you build quietly becomes something loud later. And finally, they protect their environment. Because your habits can't survive in toxic soil. You cannot have millionaire habits around minimum wage mindsets. They are ruthless with who they let in their space. Not out of pride, but preservation. They align with people who challenge them, stretch them, elevate them. People who talk assets, not gossip. People who ask, what are you building? Not what are you wearing? And slowly, that environment becomes their standard. That standard becomes their identity. That identity creates their future. And it all begins with what they do when no one's looking. That's the infrastructure. That's the system. That's the quiet machinery behind every outward success. So if you're listening to this, wondering where to start with one habit, one new standard, one commitment to yourself that says, I'm no longer living by accident, I'm building by design. Because wealth is not a destination. It's a reflection of the system you build. And systems are built by habits. So build like it matters. Because it does. Chapter 5. Your network is your net worth. The psychology of wealth circles. You can have all the knowledge, all the drive, and all the discipline in the world, but if you're in the wrong environment, your growth will be delayed, distracted, or destroyed. That's not pessimism, that's reality. Because wealth doesn't just grow in isolation, it grows in alignment. Look closely at anyone who made it to the top, anyone who built something exceptional. Yes, they worked. Yes, they sacrificed. But behind them, always, there was a circle, a group, a connection, a force bigger than them pulling them forward. Sometimes it was mentorship, sometimes it was community, sometimes it was access. But always, it was network. This is why they say, your network is your net worth, because no matter how smart you are, if you're in a room where no one's thinking about growth, your greatness will be constantly misunderstood and eventually diluted. Energy is contagious. If you're around people who think small, who live in fear, who gossip, complain, and laugh at ambition, you'll start shrinking just to fit in. Not because you want to, but because your environment subtly trains you to settle. But put that same person, same talent, same intelligence, same drive in a room of builders, thinkers, risk-takers, and wealth creators, and everything changes. Suddenly you're the one thinking bigger. You're challenged, you're stretched, you're sharpened, not because you changed instantly, but because the room demanded more from you. That's the psychology of wealth circles. We're shaped by the people we consistently allow access to our mind. If your circle talks ideas, business, and investments, you start thinking wealth. If they talk fear, failure, and fantasy, you stay stuck in loops. This is why wealthy people are intentional about their circles. They don't socialize aimlessly. They don't keep people close out of guilt. They curate their space. Not from pride, but from purpose. They understand that energy is data. Every person you engage with is either pulling you forward or pulling you back, and they're not neutral. Conversations leave residue. Environments leave impressions. Repetition becomes belief. So the wealthy don't wait to be inspired. They position themselves around inspiration, around strategy, around solution-based thinkers, people who don't flinch when money is mentioned, people who aren't triggered by success, people who are already walking the path you want to enter. Let's get real. You cannot become wealthy if everyone around you is broke-minded. You cannot learn expansion if everyone around you celebrates staying the same. You cannot speak freely about your goals if your circle mocks vision as delusion. You need rooms where your dreams don't sound crazy. You need rooms where someone is doing more than you, so you rise, not shrink. You need access to proximity, because proximity creates possibility. And no, this doesn't mean you cut off your friends and family with arrogance. It means you protect your inner circle with awareness. You can love people without letting their limitations shape your future. Wealthy people create layers around themselves. Inner circle, growth circle, legacy circle. Each serves a purpose. Not everyone has equal access. That's not selfish. That's structure. But if you want to elevate, you must ask yourself, who is sharpening me? Who challenges my excuses? Who has what I want and is willing to teach me how they got it? If the answer is no one, that's your next step. Because talent without access is just potential. Discipline without strategy is just effort. But when you combine mindset with the right circle, your growth goes from addition to multiplication. It's not just about who's cheering for you. It's about who's leading you. Who's speaking life into you when you doubt yourself? Who's making calls when you need doors opened? Who's introducing you to rooms that shift your career? That's the real wealth. Because access is currency, and relationships are assets. This is why mentorship is priceless. A conversation with the right person can save you 10 years of struggle. One introduction can change the trajectory of your life. But you only get that if you step into those spaces, even when you feel unworthy, even when it feels intimidating, even when you think, who am I to be here? Let me tell you who you are. You are someone who chose to think differently. You are someone brave enough to leave the old rooms. You are someone committed to becoming more, not for ego, but for impact. So start seeking wealth circles. Go where the conversation stretches you. Find masterminds. Pay for mentorship. Attend high-level rooms. Read what the wealthy read. Listen to how they talk. Notice what they don't entertain. Watch how they move in silence. Learn. You don't have to be them, but you can grow beside them. And if you can't reach that room yet, build your own. Start attracting like-minded people who are serious. People who are not perfect, but progressing. Create spaces where ideas breathe, where goals are normalized and where discipline is admired. And soon, you'll find your circle shifting. Your words shifting. Your life shifting. Not because you got lucky, but because you stopped keeping company with comfort and started walking with people who remind you, wealth isn't a fantasy. It's a decision, a direction, and sometimes a conversation away. Chapter 6. Money doesn't change you. It reveals you. People say money changes people, but here's the truth. Money doesn't change you, it reveals you. It uncovers what was already inside you. It amplifies what was already planted. It exposes what was hidden by struggle, silence, and survival. Money is a magnifier. That's all. If you were generous when you were broke, you'll be more generous when you're wealthy. If you were insecure before the income, wealth will only multiply your need for validation. If you were wise in scarcity, money will become a weapon in your hands. And if you were reckless before success, well, now the damage is just bigger. Money doesn't give you character. It tests it. It doesn't make you good or evil. It shows you what's already been sitting in the shadows, waiting for the lights to come on. This is why millionaire thinking doesn't just teach you how to get money. It teaches you how to carry money, to carry it with peace, with power, with responsibility. Because if your mindset isn't ready, wealth will become a curse instead of a blessing. You've seen it before. People who suddenly come into wealth, but the money leaves faster than it came. People who inherit riches, but lose it all within a few years. People who get rich loud and die empty. Why? Because the outer success outgrew the inner capacity. The house was built, but the foundation wasn't ready. Millionaire thinkers understand that wealth is a test. It's easy to think money solves everything. But money just removes the distractions that used to cover the real issues. Once you're no longer worried about bills, what's left? You. Your values, your decisions, your discipline, your self-image. That's when the real game begins. Most people think they're afraid of being broke. But what they're actually afraid of is being exposed. Because once you have money, you can't hide behind, "If only I had more." You are forced to meet yourself. Without excuses, without distractions, without noise. Millionaires prepare for that. They understand that success must be matched with self-awareness, that wealth brings weight. And if you're not ready, it will break you. This is why identity work is crucial. Before you chase wealth, you must know who you are without it. What do you value? What are your principles? What does success mean to you? Not to the world. Because if you don't define success, someone else will sell you their version of it, and you'll chase things that look good, but feel empty. Millionaire thinkers aren't trying to prove anything. They don't buy things to be seen. They don't use money to impress. They use money to expand, to create, to build, to solve. Because they've done the internal work. So when wealth arrives, it doesn't shake them. It strengthens them. Let's get clear on this. Money doesn't make you better. It gives you options. It gives you speed. It gives you reach. But it doesn't change your soul. It just puts your soul on a louder speaker. If you were kind, you're louder now. If you were bitter, you're dangerous now. If you were undisciplined, you're now a liability, not just to yourself, but to others. Wealth doesn't change you. It makes your shadow longer. It stretches your patterns. And if those patterns were cracked, now the cracks become walls. So the real work isn't just about building income. It's about building identity strong enough to carry it. This is where inner discipline matters. Can you say no when you can afford to say yes? Can you stay grounded when people start calling you great? Can you walk away from deals that don't align, even if the money is tempting? Can you still be loyal when no one is watching? Because these questions don't show up in your struggle phase, they show up after the win. And if you haven't done the work before the spotlight comes on, the light will feel like fire. Millionaires who last, they do the inner work in silence, in prayer, in reflection, in therapy, in solitude. They ask the hard questions before the world hands them the rewards. That's how you rise without falling. That's how you keep money without letting it keep you. That's how you stay whole. So if you're dreaming of wealth, good, but dream of becoming someone who's ready for it. Because if money showed up tomorrow and your thinking wasn't aligned, you'd either waste it, or worse, you'd lose yourself trying to hold it. But if your identity is built solid, if your character is sharpened, if your habits are disciplined, then money just becomes another tool in your hand. Not a god you chase, not a mirror you depend on, just a resource. And the real wealth. That's you, a version of you who can't be shaken by income or applause, who can walk in power without forgetting where they came from, who can lead without needing control, who can give without feeling less, who can receive without shame. That version of you, that's the millionaire, not the bank account, not the car, not the brand, the mindset. So when money shows up, and it will, let it reveal a person who's already full, already free, already grounded. That's real wealth. That's how you stay rich long after the numbers fade. Chapter 7. Abundance is a skill, not a circumstance. Abundance is not an accident. It's not some lottery win of the universe. It's not for the lucky or the privileged, or the chosen few. Abundance is a skill, one that can be developed, sharpened, and lived. Just like writing, speaking, building, or investing, abundance is a way of operating in the world, and like all skills, it begins in the mind. See, most people think abundance means money. But that's just a fraction. True abundance is a state of internal certainty, a deep, steady knowing that what you need is either already inside you or can be created through you. It's not about having everything, it's about fearing nothing. But let's rewind for a moment. We were not born into abundance. We were born into conditioning. And that conditioning taught us to fear lack, to believe in shortage, to prepare for the worst. We were taught to shrink our desires to match our circumstances. We were told to be realistic when we dreamed too big. We were praised for playing it safe and warned against taking chances. That's not abundance. That's inherited survival. But somewhere along the way, you start to realize the people who break through, the ones who elevate, expand, overflow, they didn't wait for abundance to show up. They chose it, they practiced it, they trained themselves to see more, create more, expect more, and give more. Not because it was easy, but because they realized that abundance, like any muscle, only grows when exercised. The difference is clear when you observe how people handle the same situation. Put a scarcity-minded person and an abundance-minded person in the same crisis, and you'll see two completely different reactions. One shuts down, the other gets creative. One sees barriers, the other sees workarounds. One complains, the other adapts. Abundance is a choice to live in possibility. And possibility is always present, even when money isn't. Let's be real, you can have $1 million in the bank and still operate in scarcity, still feel like you're not enough, still hoard, panic, protect, and isolate. You can also have $100 and be thinking with such clarity, such gratitude, and such creativity that you're attracting more without even realizing it. Because abundance isn't about what's in your pocket, it's about what's in your pattern. It's how you walk into a room. It's how you handle rejection. It's how you treat people who can do nothing for you. It's how you give when no one is watching. It's how you speak about yourself when you're alone. Abundance is not showy. It's not loud. It doesn't need gold chains and luxury cars. True abundance is peace. The kind of peace that says, I can lose it all and still rebuild. The kind of confidence that says, I am the source, not the money, not the market, not the economy. But to reach that level, you must train it. And that training looks like this. You rewire the way you respond to lack. You stop panicking and start planning. You stop seeing temporary setbacks as permanent failure. You stop telling your story from the lens of what was missing and start telling it from the lens of what was becoming. You practice giving even when it's tight, not irresponsibly, but intentionally, because giving is the fertilizer of abundance. It expands your capacity to hold more. It says to the universe, I am not afraid of running out. And it's not just money. It's attention. It's time. It's energy. It's presence. Scarcity hoards. Abundance shares. And in the act of sharing, it grows. This is why millionaires keep learning. Because abundance feeds off growth. It refuses to stay stagnant. It asks, what else can I master? What else can I build? Who else can I help? Scarcity wants safety. Abundance wants purpose. And purpose always expands. But don't confuse abundance with recklessness. True abundance is deeply rooted in wisdom. It knows when to say yes and when to walk away. It knows the difference between generosity and self-sabotage. It doesn't need applause because it knows what it's building. When you meet someone living in abundance, you can feel it. They don't need to speak much. They move differently. They don't force. They don't chase. They attract. They create. They anchor the room. Without demanding it, you can be that person. You don't need to wait for more money, more followers, more clients. You need to decide here, now, that you will train this mindset until it becomes your default. Wake up each day and choose to operate from overflow, not because you have everything, but because you believe you can create everything. You don't say, "I can't afford it." You say, "How can I create the value to earn it?" You don't ask, "Who's going to help me?" You say, "Who can I help today?" You don't avoid failure. You face it, learn from it, and grow stronger. That's abundance. That's the inner shift that turns average into extraordinary. And once you live there long enough, the world adjusts to meet your frequency. Opportunities show up, doors open, rooms change. People notice, not because you were lucky, but because you were trained, because you lived in abundance before the money ever came. And now that the money's here, you're already the person who can carry it. Chapter 8. Think in assets, not paychecks. Most people spend their lives chasing paychecks. Every 2 weeks, every month, they wait for the deposit, plan around it, and survive until the next one. It becomes a cycle. Wake up, work, wait, repeat. But millionaires, they don't think in paychecks. They think in assets. They understand that the goal isn't to trade time for money forever. The goal is to own things that make money while you sleep. Not because they're lazy, but because time is the only thing you can never get back. And once you realize that, you stop selling it cheap. This shift from paycheck thinking to asset thinking is the moment you stop being a worker and start becoming a builder. Let's get clear. A paycheck gives you income. An asset gives you freedom. A paycheck ends when the work ends. An asset keeps producing long after the effort is done. This is why people who think like millionaires don't just focus on earning more, they focus on building things that pay them over time. Real estate, businesses, intellectual property, investments, digital products, systems, teams. They're not just employees. They're architects of their future. And they're always asking, what can I build once that pays me forever? It's not about greed. It's about design. If you only focus on paychecks, your earning is tied to your presence. If you get sick, your income drops. If you want to rest, your income stops. But with assets, you unlock scale. You remove the ceiling. You reclaim your hours. You get back your mornings, your health, your peace, your creativity. This doesn't mean you quit your job tomorrow. It means you change how you think while you're still there. You start using your job to fund your future, not just your lifestyle. Every paycheck becomes a seed, and every seed, if planted right, becomes a tree. This is how you start building your wealth. You take a portion of your income and put it to work. You invest in skills. You learn how to write, sell, design, speak, market, negotiate, invest, because those skills don't expire. They multiply, and once you have skills, you build products, services, brands, systems. You create something that works without you constantly holding it up. Even better, you learn to invest, not in hype, but in value. You study companies, you understand cash flow, you learn risk, you let compound interest become your ally. You stop being a consumer of things and start being a part owner of machines. That's how millionaires think. They don't think, how much can I make this month? They think, what can I build today that still pays me 10 years from now? Let's look at a simple example. Imagine you write a short ebook and sell it for 10. It took you 2 weeks to write it. You sell it 100 times a year. That's $1,000 per year. Now imagine 10 books like that. 10,000. Now imagine those books point to a course. That course earns $20,000 a year. Now you add affiliate income. You promote products you believe in and earn $500. That's another $6,000. You didn't quit your job. You didn't raise money. You just thought like a millionaire. You thought in assets. And once your assets are running, you have choices. You can buy your time back. You can spend more time with your family. You can focus on your health. You can invest in others. You can take creative risks. You can say no to things that drain you. Not because you're rude, but because you're free. Here's the trap most people fall into. They increase their paycheck and increase their lifestyle even faster. New job, new car, bonus, new clothes, promotion, bigger rent, but nothing gets built. Nothing gets kept. And 10 years later, they're still tired, still waiting, still depending. Because income grew, but assets never did. Millionaires don't do that. They live below their means. Not forever, but long enough to build, long enough to invest in freedom, long enough to plant trees they'll sit under later. And when those trees bear fruit, then they upgrade. Not with fear, but with confidence, because they know it's sustainable. That's the secret. Assets create peace. Paychecks create pressure. Now don't get it twisted. Paychecks are important. They're the starting point, but don't let them become the only point. Use your job. Don't let it use you. Let it fund your dream. Let it build your skill set. Let it become your investor. And then build your exit. Not overnight, but brick by brick. Build your brand, your system, your following, your product, your investments. And one day, you'll look up and realize you don't work for money anymore. Money works for you. And that's real wealth. That's the turning point. That's when you're no longer asking, what's my salary? You're asking, what's my value? What's my impact? What am I building that lasts beyond me? Millionaire thinking starts with questions like that, and it always ends in freedom.
Chapter 9. You can't be rich with a poor environment.
You can have the best intentions. You can wake up early, journal your dreams, meditate, and visualize success. But if the environment around you is toxic, draining, or limiting, you're fighting a silent war every day. And the truth is, you can't be rich with a poor environment. We don't just grow from within. We grow from where we stand, from the sounds we hear, from the energy that surrounds us, from the voices that speak into our spirit. And most people are living in environments that are quietly killing their potential. Not with loud negativity, but with subtle limits. With people who constantly play small and make you feel too much for dreaming big. With conversations that orbit around gossip, complaints, drama, and distractions. With routines that numb the mind instead of sharpening it. With spaces so cluttered and chaotic, there's no room to breathe, let alone build. But here's the thing. Millionaire thinking does not survive in poverty-minded environments. It suffocates. Because no matter how strong your mindset is, environment always pulls harder than motivation. The atmosphere you're in becomes the norm. It becomes your emotional thermostat. And if that thermostat is set to mediocrity, your internal fire will constantly get cooled down over and over. Let's get brutally honest. If you're always around broke thinking, you normalize struggle. If you're always surrounded by emotional chaos, you normalize drama. If your circle always chooses distraction over discipline, you start to lower your standards to feel included. But millionaire thinking requires elevation. And elevation demands separation. Not because you're better, but because you're becoming. You're becoming someone with different habits, different standards, different values, and when your values shift, your environment has to shift too, or you'll be in constant conflict with yourself. This doesn't mean you hate anyone. It means you protect your mind like a sacred space, because it is. You start choosing what you allow in, what you allow near, what you allow around. You don't entertain gossip. You avoid chaos. You detach from people who glorify suffering, scarcity, and self-sabotage. And you replace it with growth, with voices that challenge you, with energy that elevates you, with spaces that feel calm, clean, and charged with purpose. Sometimes that means walking away from friendships, from old hangouts, from online circles full of noise, from digital addictions that feel comforting but keep you broke. The hardest part? You'll feel alone at first, because the climb to abundance is often silent. But don't confuse silence with failure. Silence is where you rebuild. It's where you write your new story, where you reset your standards, where you become so rooted in your identity that no amount of noise can pull you off track again. Millionaires do this intentionally. They design their spaces. They design their circles. They design their days. You'll see them leave rooms quickly that drain them. You'll see them go offline when they need clarity. You'll see them audit their friends' content and inputs constantly, because they know environment is destiny. Even if you're motivated, if your environment is stuck, you'll stay stuck. Even if you read 100 books, if the people around you dismiss your growth, you'll hesitate to apply what you learn. Even if you start earning more, if your circle still thinks broke, you'll feel guilty for your ambition. This is why changing your environment is not a luxury. It's a necessity. If you want to think like a millionaire, you have to surround yourself with expansion. You need to be near people who already live in the mindset you're trying to build. People who ask you how your ideas are going, not just how your day was. People who celebrate your discipline, not your distractions. People who remind you of your future, not just your past. This doesn't mean you'll always find them in person. Sometimes your new environment starts with voices you've never met. Podcasts, books, videos, mentors from a distance, but they rewire your atmosphere. They upgrade your internal weather. They shift your perspective. And suddenly the things you thought were impossible begin to feel normal. That's the power of proximity. The more you stay close to growth, the more growth becomes inevitable. And here's the secret. You don't need perfect people around you. You just need aligned people. People who are hungry. People who are healing. People who are building something, even if it's small. That's enough to shift everything. Because success is contagious. Just like complaining is. The choice is always yours. Stay where it's familiar and remain stuck in cycles. Or step into discomfort and enter elevation. Millionaires choose discomfort. They choose higher ground. They build environments that pull them forward, not back. They guard their energy. They filter their inputs. They build boundaries without guilt. And because of that, they grow faster, deeper, and stronger. So, if you feel stuck, don't just change your goals. Change your environment. Rebuild your room. Rebuild your feed. Rebuild your circle. Because if you want a new outcome, you need a new ecosystem. And once you build that, everything accelerates. Ideas flow faster. Momentum returns. Opportunities multiply. You rise without resistance. Because you're no longer fighting against your environment. You're flowing with it. And that, right there, is millionaire-level living. Chapter 10: Discipline is the doorway to freedom. Freedom, the dream of every human being. The ability to do what you want, when you want, without being chained by circumstances. People think freedom comes from money. They think it comes from time. They think it comes from quitting a job or making passive income. But true freedom doesn't start there. It starts in one place: discipline. Without discipline, freedom is a fantasy. It's a mirage in the desert. It looks beautiful from afar, but disappears the moment you get close. Why? Because without discipline, money slips through your fingers. Time gets wasted. Energy gets scattered. Opportunities fade, and regret builds. Millionaire thinkers understand this deeply. They don't worship motivation. They don't wait to feel like it. They build systems. They follow routines. They set boundaries. And most importantly, they honor their word to themselves. They do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. That's discipline. It's not punishment. It's not suffering. It's not perfection. It's alignment. Alignment between what you say you want and how you live each day. Because here's the truth. A goal without discipline is just a wish. Anyone can dream. Anyone can visualize. Anyone can post about their plans. But only the disciplined will see it through when it gets boring, hard, slow, or inconvenient. Discipline is the glue between intention and result. And when you develop it, really develop it, you become dangerous. You become consistent. You become reliable. You become focused. You start showing up every day and people begin to take you seriously. Most importantly, you begin to take yourself seriously. Let's talk practically. Discipline isn't about doing everything. It's about doing the right things over and over until the results become inevitable. That means you stop waking up whenever you want. You set a time and protect it like your life depends on it, because in a way, it does. You stop scrolling endlessly and start using your phone like a tool, not a toy. You block distractions. You batch your tasks. You move with intent. It means creating time to learn, creating space to think, saying no to noise so you can say yes to greatness. This is what separates the rich in results from the rich in excuses. Discipline is not something you're born with. It's built through repetition, through structure, through boundaries. It's waking up and doing the work even when the mood is gone. It's finishing the course. It's showing up to the gym. It's uploading the video. It's writing the page. It's keeping the promise. And over time, that becomes your identity. You stop calling yourself lazy. You stop doubting your willpower. Because now, you have evidence. You are the kind of person who follows through. And the world begins to respond. People notice your consistency. Opportunities find you. Your skills grow faster. Your mind becomes sharper. Your life becomes lighter. You start to feel peace. The kind of peace that only comes from living in integrity with your potential. Because that's what discipline gives you: peace. The peace of no longer letting yourself down. The peace of no longer chasing motivation. The peace of being in control. And when you're in control, freedom follows. Not the fake kind of freedom. Not escape. Not temporary highs. Not weekend distraction. The real kind. The kind where you walk into a room and you're not afraid of anyone's opinion because you know you've paid your dues in silence. The kind where you turn down opportunities that don't align with your purpose because you're already building your own. The kind where your future is no longer a mystery because you've designed it. One disciplined day at a time. But here's what they won't tell you. Discipline hurts at first. It feels unnatural. It makes you feel like you're missing out. Your old self will resist. Your friends may question it. Your comfort zone will scream. But keep going. Push through the resistance. Because on the other side of that pain is power. Real power. The power to choose your direction instead of being dragged by distractions. The power to say, "This is who I am now," and mean it. The power to wake up every day knowing that your life is moving forward. And the beautiful thing? Once you master discipline, everything else gets easier. Not because the world changes, but because you do. You don't need perfect conditions anymore. You don't need people to support you all the time. You don't wait for the stars to align. You just move. You just show up. You just execute. And you do it again tomorrow. This is the millionaire's secret weapon. Not the car. Not the clothes. Not the fame. Discipline. Silent. Invisible. But unstoppable. It's what builds brands. It's what builds wealth. It's what builds legacy. Because when the world sleeps, the disciplined build. When others party, the disciplined plan. When others quit, the disciplined adjust. And they keep going. Until the goal is no longer a goal, it's reality. That's what freedom really is. It's not about running away from work. It's about becoming so disciplined that your work starts working for you. So if you want the life, you want the money, you want the peace, start here. Build discipline and never look back. Chapter 11. The power of long-term thinking. The average person thinks about the next weekend. The millionaire thinks about the next decade. That's the difference. Not just in money, but in vision. In the way they make decisions. In the way they invest time. In the way they respond to failure. Most people live reactive lives. They wake up to urgent problems, rush into short-term solutions, and chase quick validation. But millionaire thinkers, they move slower, yet go farther. They're not addicted to now. They're committed to later, because they understand. The future belongs to the patient. Every time they say no to a fast temptation, they're saying yes to a bigger future. Let's get one thing clear. Long-term thinking isn't about waiting. It's about building. It's not sitting back, hoping things work out in 10 years. It's showing up today with the intention of building something that compounds slowly, silently, powerfully. The greatest results in life don't come from explosive moments. They come from consistent investment of time, of energy, of focus. That's why millionaire thinkers aren't swayed by trends. They're not chasing what's hot this week. They're busy building what will matter in 5 years. Their mindset is tuned to legacy, not just income. They ask themselves questions that others don't. Will this decision serve me 5 years from now? Will this habit still bring value when Will this business idea survive beyond the hype? This kind of thinking changes everything. It changes the way you treat your health. You stop chasing fast diets and start building sustainable strength. It changes how you approach learning. You stop collecting random tips and start mastering timeless principles. It changes how you deal with money. You stop blowing cash on short highs and start investing in assets that grow while you sleep. And most importantly, it changes your identity. You stop being someone who lives moment to moment. You become someone who's planting seeds. You see, every decision you make is a seed. Some people plant seeds of pleasure and get weeds of regret. Millionaire thinkers plant seeds of discipline, clarity, and purpose, and they water it daily, not because they need instant results, but because they know what's coming. They're playing the long game, and that's the game that always wins. Let's talk about money. You'll see people chasing crypto pumps, meme stocks, or shiny business ideas just to make a quick flip. But ask any real millionaire how they got wealthy. They'll tell you the same thing. Compound interest, smart ownership, long-term consistency. They bought things that grew. They built things that lasted. They stayed in the game while others jumped around. Because when you think long-term, you stop trying to look successful. You start becoming it. You don't need to impress anyone today. You don't need to post every move. You're not building for applause. You're building for impact. And here's the thing. Long-term thinkers aren't just smart. They're calm because they're not in a rush. They're not stressed by short-term setbacks. They're not shaken by one bad month. They know the journey is longer than people expect, but the rewards are deeper than people imagine. Short-term thinkers panic. They get emotional. They compare. They quit. But long-term thinkers, they adjust. They zoom out. They adapt. They keep going. It's not that they don't feel the pressure, they just don't let it own them. They trust the process. And because they trust it, the process begins to trust them back. Doors open. People notice. Reputation builds. You know why? Because in a world full of sprinters, consistency is rare, and rare always becomes valuable. So here's the truth. If you want millionaire results, you need millionaire patience. You need to delay the dopamine, delay the applause, delay the instant reward. You need to choose purpose over pleasure. Every single day. That means you work even when no one claps. You create even when no one watches. You invest even when no one understands. And slowly, without making noise, you rise. Because time rewards those who respect it. It rewards the quiet workers, the patient planners, the humble builders. And one day, your results speak. Not loudly, but undeniably. People say you blew up overnight, but you know better. You didn't blow up. You grew up. You grew in silence, in discipline, in long-term thinking. That's the mindset that turns effort into equity. That's the thinking that creates wealth you don't have to explain, because it shows So if you feel frustrated right now, if it feels like your work isn't paying off fast enough, if your results look small, zoom out, breathe, and remember, the best things take time, and you're not behind. You're just building something that lasts. Chapter 12. Rejecting instant gratification. Choosing delayed power. Success doesn't happen because of one big yes. It happens because of 1,000 tiny no's. No to the snooze button. No to the quick pleasure. No to the shortcut. No to the applause that isn't earned yet. Every time you say no to something cheap, you're saying yes to something deeper. That's the mindset of those who think and live like millionaires. They've mastered the art of rejecting instant gratification because they know one truth. What's fast is rarely fulfilling, and what's slow, that's where the power is. Let's break it down. Instant gratification is easy. It's addicting. It feels good. It rewards you now. The cookie instead of the workout. The scrolling instead of the building. The likes instead of the legacy. But what it gives you today, it takes back tomorrow. That's the trade-off. You get a moment of relief in exchange for a lifetime of stagnation. And the worst part, it doesn't feel wrong, because the world has trained you to want now. Now comfort. Now answers. Now success. We live in a society where a 5-second delay feels like torture, where people rage if the Wi-Fi lags, where slow is called failure. But the millionaires, they move differently. They choose what's meaningful over what's immediate. They're not seduced by the dopamine drip. They're not puppets of pleasure. They're strategic, not impulsive. They delay their reward because they know real reward lives on the other side of discipline. It's the gym session that doesn't show results today, but rewires your identity tomorrow. It's the business launch that nobody understands yet, but grows into a brand that changes lives. It's the skill you practice in silence that one day makes people say, "How are you so good at this?" All of that comes from delayed gratification. Let me say this clearly. If you always choose what feels good now, you'll never become who you're meant to be. You'll stay in the loop of starting and quitting. You'll feel busy but go nowhere. You'll have ideas but no execution. You'll build momentum and waste it again and again. But once you start choosing long over loud, purpose over pleasure, later over now, you transform. You become stronger than your urges, more powerful than your past, and more focused than your distractions. That's the rarest kind of power. The power to walk away from what looks good, because you're committed to what's great. Let's talk about how this plays out in the real world. You want to build wealth. You'll have to stop buying things that validate you in public and start investing in things that grow you in private. You want to build peace. You'll have to stop reacting to every noise and start responding with intention. You want real confidence? You'll have to stop chasing praise and start chasing progress. Every short-term win you skip is an investment in your long-term power. You skip the party to build the business. You skip the gossip to protect your mental state. You skip the comfort food to stay sharp and healthy. Not because you hate joy, but because you've upgraded your definition of joy. Because now you see joy not as pleasure, but as freedom. Freedom from regret. Freedom from inconsistency. Freedom from being a slave to your impulses. Here's a secret. The world will try to shame you for choosing long-term. They'll say you're boring, too serious, too focused, too obsessed. Let them, because the same people who mock you now will envy your peace later. When they're still stuck in the same cycle, you'll be flying in a whole different reality. One you built, brick by brick, choice by choice, delay by delay. But make no mistake, this is war. Every day, your mind will tempt you. Just one more scroll, just one more snack, just one more break, just one more excuse. And every time you give in, you reinforce weakness. But every time you say, "Not today," you build a wall, a mental fortress, a mind that doesn't fall for cheap tricks anymore. That's millionaire thinking. It's not about being rich. It's about being free. Free from needing everything now. Free from proving yourself with possessions. Free from the emotional roller coaster of urgency. Because once you stop rushing for validation, you start building for meaning. Once you stop reacting to distraction, you start focusing on destiny. Once you stop needing it now, you start becoming someone who will have it forever. And that's the real secret. The people who delay today rule tomorrow. So next time it's hard, next time it hurts, next time you feel like giving in, remember this: every temptation is a test, and every test passed builds your empire. In silence, in structure, in soul. Chapter 13. Reprogram your environment. Design for success. You can have the right mindset. You can have the strongest vision. But if your environment is pulling you down, you'll lose the fight. Because you can't think like a millionaire while living in an atmosphere of mediocrity. Your surroundings are not neutral. They either feed your growth or kill it. Every sound, every voice, every object around you, it's either helping your focus or hijacking it. Let's be real. You can't keep saying you want to become wealthy while staying stuck in rooms filled with distractions, negativity, gossip, and laziness. Millionaire thinking is not just about what's inside your mind. It's about what surrounds your life. Because your environment whispers things to your subconscious that your conscious mind isn't even aware of. If your room is cluttered, your thoughts become messy. If your phone is chaotic, your time bleeds silently. If your circle is filled with low-energy people, your dreams begin to shrink. That's why high-level thinkers are ruthless about one thing: the space they allow around them. It's not just about cutting people off. It's about creating a space where your greatness can breathe. So ask yourself, what are you allowing into your field? What music do you hear when you work? What visuals are on your walls? What content are you consuming every day? This is not small stuff. This is the operating system that runs your life silently. Millionaire minds don't run on randomness. They run on intentionality. They design their mornings. They curate their inputs. They declutter their digital world. They limit noise and elevate silence. Because they know that silence is not empty, it's full of answers. You want to think clearly? Clear your room. Clear your desktop. Clear your daily schedule. Make space for clarity. You want to move faster? Delete what drags. That friend who always drains your energy. Limit access. That app that steals your mornings? Delete it. That routine that leaves you uninspired? Replace it. Because in this journey, environment isn't background, it's influence. It shapes your mood. Your mood shapes your energy. Your energy shapes your execution. And your execution shapes your reality. Millionaires build environments that reflect the life they want, not the life they're escaping. Their space is clean. Their tools are sharpened. Their mornings are protected. Their nights are sacred. Not because they're obsessed with routine, but because they understand how fragile focus is, and they guard it like treasure. Let me make this even more personal. Your home, your desk, your phone, they're not just utilities. They are signals. Every time you walk into a clean, organized space, it tells your brain, this is where winners work. Every time you wake up and move through a designed morning ritual, it tells your body, we're on a mission. Every time you keep your workspace distraction-free, it tells your soul, this work matters. These are not motivational ideas. These are neural blueprints. You are rewiring yourself with every single object around you. So the next time you feel stuck, don't just look inward. Look around. What are you tolerating? That messy shelf? That toxic group chat? That habit of sleeping with your phone next to your head? Clean it. Cut it. Change it. Because your future is not just shaped by your goals, it's shaped by your defaults. Change the default. Change the destination. And don't wait for motivation to strike. Create an environment where motivation naturally grows. Make your workspace feel like success. Make your mornings feel like peace. Make your evenings feel like rest, so your body recovers and your spirit refuels. Because when you wake up in an environment designed for greatness, you stop fighting your surroundings. You start flowing with them. And here's the final truth. No matter how powerful your mindset is, you will never outgrow a small environment. You can't dream big in a place built for survival. You can't stay focused in a space screaming for your attention. You can't rise if everything around you is pulling you to stay average. So build your kingdom. Even if it's just a small room today, treat it like a temple. Let it smell like clarity. Let it sound like vision. Let it feel like focus. Because once you do that, your outer world will begin to match your inner one. And when the inside and outside agree, you become unstoppable. That's how millionaires live. Not just by earning more, but by becoming more. By thinking differently. By choosing differently. By surrounding themselves with power, not noise. And now it's your turn. You've heard every chapter. You've walked through the mind of a millionaire. This isn't the end of a book. It's the beginning of a new identity. So don't just close this audio and go back to default. Burn the old scripts. Clear the space. Create the atmosphere. And live the thoughts that wealth is built on. Because the secret was never out there. It's been inside you all along.